Welcome to Win the Day. I'm Dan Koch filling in for Pastor Nat Crawford, and today we're going to talk about contenders. Galatians chapter 2, verses 3 through 5. But even Titus, who was with me, was not forced to be circumcised, though he was a Greek. Yet because of false brothers secretly brought in, who slipped in to spy out our freedom that we have in Christ Jesus, so that they might bring us into slavery. To them we did not yield in submission even for a moment, so that the truth of the gospel might be preserved for you. Discernment is the critical need for the hour. We are being conditioned culturally to think we have to be nice and accepting of everything and everyone always. If God calls something a sin and the world calls it good, we should keep quiet. If God calls something good and the world says it's oppressive, we should keep quiet. David Wells said, "Worldliness is whatever makes sin look normal and righteousness look strange." Paul said he did not yield even for a moment to false brothers trying to pervert the gospel of Christ. Paul contended for the faith, and so should we. Ideas battle for the hearts and the minds of a people. And the idea that Paul is resisting is the notion that Gentiles need to be circumcised in order to be saved. Paul said these guys proposing this were actually false brothers. They pretended to be Christian while looking to the Old Testament sacrificial system to make them righteous before God. They had not embraced the apostolic gospel. And if their ideas had won the day, it would have enslaved the church in legalism. Paul said his goal in contending with these false brothers was to preserve the purity of the apostolic gospel, the same gospel that he had other Christian brothers review and evaluate, the one that he was preaching. Now, the gospel faces direct attacks, indirect attacks, and subtle, deceptive attacks. Opponents will put pressure on you to abandon the pure apostolic gospel using the weight of culture. You know, it takes courage to stand up to enemies of the gospel. It takes love for Christ and the church to stand up for the gospel. It takes wisdom and discernment to understand the schemes of the enemy. All it takes to do nothing in the face of these attacks is to ignore the gospel and turn your back on Christ as Lord. Martin Luther's hymn comes to mind. What a mighty fortress is our God. You know, here's a man who spearheaded the Protestant Reformation. He knew a little something about contending for the gospel. May we contend as well.